Hey, what's happening everyone? SirJames coming at you guys with another video. In today's video, I'm here to give you guys a quick little review on the Tesla versus Lovecraft, which is available on the Xbox One, PC, and PlayStation 4. Now, to pretty much give you the rundown of the story, it goes like this, is that you are Nikola Tesla, the world-famous inventor and genius extraordinaire. At the eve of your greatest inventions, your laboratory is burned down by the horror author H.P. Lovecraft, who claimed that your actions have put the world into peril with the help of his accurate book. And of course, a vast army of monsters, he has stolen your most precious inventions, and that's basically the sum of the story. Now, of course, it's not going to be heavily focused on that because overall, it's pretty much a top-down arcade shooter. Now, to go ahead and touch upon the visualization of the game graphically, the game actually looks very nice. All the creatures and of course your character and your mech all look nicely detailed. The environment, the landscapes, and the different locations that you're going to be put into also look very good. And I did notice too, especially with a lot of the different weapons and the coloring and lighting effect, there definitely seems to be a lot of color and provides a really nice atmosphere overall. But again, visualization is definitely very colorful and really good. Now, to go ahead and touch upon the gameplay, it isn't too complicated to understand. It's basically a twin stick shooter where of course you are going to be faced against hordes of enemies and your job is to survive. Now, the game at first starts off very easy, but as you progress further into the game it does become challenging and becomes harder. One of the things I definitely like too is that you're not always going to be on the same map. Oftentimes as you're kind of going into different locations, the map is going to constantly change, which means also your gameplay style is going to have to change along with it. For example, there's going to be some maps where there's going to be a lot of open locations for your character to run around, and other times you're going to be set in a location where basically it's going to feel a little bit more cramped and you're going to have to be much smarter compared to what moves you make just so you don't become surrounded, and of course try and figure out what weapons you want to use, but I'll touch upon that in just a minute. Speaking of course, again, as far as the gameplay goes, it starts off easy, but the more you progress further into the game, the much challenging and harder it gets. Now, the game does offer two different options of gameplay style. You could choose to play it by yourself in single player, or if you have a couch buddy with you, then of course you could sit there and play a co-op version, which is something that you might want to do if you have someone to play with. If not, then the single player version is completely fine. Speaking of weapons, you start off with the very basics, basically a handgun, and of course eventually you start unlocking machine guns, and then you start unlocking some different styles of weapons based on inventions, and of course from there it's going to help you out to defeat depending on how you want to work things out. For example, there might be a couple particular weapons that's going to catch your fancy and something that you might want to use a lot because they could deal with the hordes of enemies a lot better, or because they have a much bigger area of effect. But again, there's quite a bit of them to go all around. The other thing that you also have access to is a mech suit, and basically after you're done using the mech suit, basically it blows apart into 6 different pieces, which of course you acquire the 6 pieces again, which will allow you to use the mech suit once again. So it's very overpowering, but at the same time it's also very satisfying, especially when you bring it down at the heat of the moment and just slaughter everything in your pathway. The other thing that you also have access to is power-ups that occasionally drop in. Now, one of the things too to keep in mind is that as you're killing the enemies, you're also leveling up your character, and every time you level up, you'll be able to bring up this menu, which will give you 1 or 2 options, which will basically give you options between, like, for example, do you want more movement speed, or do you want a faster rate of fire? And again, oftentimes as you keep leveling up, you're going to keep getting these choices, some of which are going to double up and stack on top of each other, which is very good, especially with my personal favorites being the rate of fire and of course movement speed. Those are the two definitely most useful ones. But again, the more you progress into the game, the more that you tend to unlock and the more you will have access to, but everything works out very fun. Again, it's a fun arcade shooter, either single player or cooperatively, and it definitely provides a nice challenge, especially later on into the game, because again, it starts off slow, but it picks up very nicely. I just wish it kind of picked up from the start, but again, eventually work your way there. Now, of course, overall, as far as the replay value goes, there's definitely a lot of replay value because, again, if you're trying to complete the game and beat every single level, you are going to, again, reach the more challenging sections, which either you are going to do good in or to the point where you can keep failing until you acquire victory. So, again, there's definitely some replay value here, especially if you have a friend to play with. That definitely brings up the replay value quite a bit. But in the end, I'm easily going to give this game a 10 out of 10. Honestly, I really don't have any complaints. I don't see any flaws with it. There's a lot of different power-ups. Of course, you could also get crystals that you unlock too, which will kind of give you some extra benefits, such as increasing the overall health of your mech unit and so forth. But it got to the point where I didn't really see me trying to get all the crystals to get every single unlockable. But again, the game overall is just a very inexpensive, very fun, top-down shooter, something that's definitely worth the pickup. But until then, I am SirJames from Gamerfuzion.com, where we empower your gaming.